great. Thank you for coming.
I guess I'll sit on the front. Are you got this reserved?
No.
Okay.
Don, I can move over.
Don, this is my daughter Jenny.
Hi.
Yeah, how are you?
She's going to be coming to the senior center and take part in all the activities.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. God.
Can I sit here? Or? Oh, let me sit here.
So many people.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi.
Thank you so much for coming in on this glorious day. I'd like to ask at this time, please turn off any cell phones, beepers, pagers, iPads, iPods, Game Boys, anything that can or will make noise during this event. Today's guest speaker will be Jim Milstead, and he will be presenting from Collage. I'd like to welcome Jim Milstead.
This is so heartwarming. Well, first of all, because I have a short-term memory, I want to read off my acknowledgments. I wish to express my intense gratitude to Mary Gilliland for creating this lovely book, and Norman Green for the exquisite printing. Mary, Andy McBride, and Betty Scott for their astute editing and brilliant suggestions. To members of the Independent Writers Studio Village Books Poetry Group, with special thanks to Shannon Laws. Members of the Senior Center Personal Writers, Memoir Group, Singing Group, Play Group, Brain Power Group, taking charge of Lauren Huddleston's discussion group. To Laura Lee at Village Books Open Mic for allowing me extra time and not pulling the levers, sending me below to join the Dead Poets Society. To Carla Schaefer and members of the Chuckanut Sandstone Writers Theater, to Firehouse Theater, the Unitarian Fellowship, the Creekside Open Mic, to Luther Allen and Judy for Speakeasy, to all the fellow writers who've inspired me over the years, to my short-term memory that insists that I carry a notebook with me at all times, to Dean Kahn for his support, and to Chuck and Mrs. Robinson for generously providing facilities for our activities. This is a trip to Clayton Beach with my muse. Vision. Seeking origins, we choose the water path, follow the current moving beneath ice. Crystals grown firm in the quiet dark shatter against the leathery force of our morning intrusion. Farther on, where the water falls over dying rock, softened by rooted persuasions, we climb cautiously down to the pebbled beach, pulsing with vagrant ambition. Here, ice once etched its insistence upon stone. Volcanic towers of fire rose to spread their lofty terror over the uplifted landscape. Long before, there could have been lindens and lilies, birches and alders, clinging lianas, their embryonic messages swirling through the air, and sunsets may have blazed a gnarled passage through old oaks. As we watch the gentle pulse of waters, time is reassembled. Wind serpentines over grass. Earth broken by rain bends reluctantly, recreating within its scenario of arrival and departure, meandering green meanings. And you and I, like the fog, become a conduit for the ocean's voice. And then this took place in New Mexico in the Sangre de Cristo Mountains when I was on a study with the forest entomology group with the Multiversity of Uniformia. And it's called Adaptations. Alone upon a mountain, within this tapestry of solitude woven through the seasons, each event is surely a miracle. The unexpected bursting of a cloud, the rising of a river, a chill that begets abscission, the bewitching fragrance of a flower stitching itself into memory, the casual glide of buffered sun crossing a lichened wall of stone, caressing iris and grass, spider and butterfly, the slow stream moving dreamily that draws me to the water's edge, where ripples reveal the strider, light harvests its being, where I strive to lose my dark fears, my narcissistic ambitions, where I unfold myself within the eternal beauty of this moment, in all its fragile evanescence, its sunlight, shadow, its terraced murmur of water. Expiration date. A tall, dark lady dressed in black surprised him with a cardiac, an hourglass figure built for play. She simply took his breath away and never brought it back. This is from childhood. Hourglass winter. They seem to lie at the bottom, squeezed together, compressed like sandstone. A few protrude, almost forgotten, almost indecipherable. The faint aroma of fried onions in the air. A firm pronouncement of the stockyards in early spring. My father's breath hanging heavily on the bituminous bone-cold winter's air as we pull my red wagon loaded with our Christmas tree over the sidewalk snow. A hint of gliding half a glassine forever over the frozen street until I lay comforter warm wrapped in Mother's Robert Louis Stevenson voice. Those mornings when monsters and demons glared down from the silvered screen, and school days as my fellow snowmen and I played at Cold War, hurling soft missiles with incautious enthusiasm. When words made of letters and letters made of words could wound with stiletto efficiency, vanished in the mist, abandoned in the rough swirl of each second's debilitating chaos. Where did those memories go? Are they piled up somewhere at the bottom of my latent awareness? And if the hourglass is upended, will I discover when I learn to be too quiet, to hold too much in, to speak only when spoken to, and when it came to love, never really knowing how to begin or how to let go?
That's so cool.
This are two poems about my father. Collection. Well-wishers departed, pious phrases forgotten. He rests after a long journey. His broken home stands beneath the tamaracks, where thistles display their barbed warning, and puncture vines proliferate under the swelter of late August. The living room ripe with desolation. My mother in her smoke-scarred chair, her face an ashen window of regret. Within his small room I sift through ruins, paintings of ships and lighthouses, of lonely cabins at the forest edge of his imagination. I linger among memories of stories that take me to places that glitter, remember acts that bring mistrust, recall days and nights when I long for him to return to lie beside me. I am filled with the regret of misunderstandings, of neglect, of realizations that arrive too late. Here on his bench, stones that my father coveted gather dust. Malachite green moss, galena lead flashing silver fire, sulfide pyramids sun yellow, stones made smooth by wind and water, and by a man who loved them. Oh, my father, in my memory I polish your rough edges, your desert surfaces. I make you smooth. You are mine now. And then he took me to shoot ducks. Journey. Our headlamps glare. The tires rasp sand. My reveries give rise to ghosts that chase us as we move over dry earth, thirsting for rain. In their wake, the soft touch of his hand, the fragile closeness that we share, make darker visions easier to bear. Then we are at the water's edge. Mist swirls, and stark coyote voices ripple the furry surface of the dark, stipple sharp echoes forth and back over the lake. His shotgun rests in the quiet nest of his sunburned arm, assuring me there is nothing here to bring me harm. My father's hands are burred with callous, and his words fall far and few between, as if they were ashamed of being heard. We sit still in silent connection, he on his quest, I with my questions. The pithy fog begins to swirl, and from the west dipping and soaring, whirling flocks of green-winged teal wheel over us in restless flight. And at the first faint streak of early light, his blue eyes glare along the glinting barrel, out where the air is shattered by his will. I feel their cry, and green-winged birds begin to tumble from the sky. And now, a lighter one. Thanks to Andy, who changed from Kafka to Kafka. Kafka. Kafka loves coffee, but coughed when he cupped it. Kafka loved wine, but coughed when he supped it. Coughed night and day to his own sad annoyance, suffered because never blessed with clairvoyance, he knew not the cause, had a way of not knowing when coughs would appear or where they were going. At parties he was a most dangerous mixer. emitted the coughs while he sought an elixir. Cacophonous coughs followed one on another until he surmised he might suddenly smother. Always they proved to be more than a trifle, resistant to either a sniff or a stifle. Coughing with never a hope of repair, continually caught in their midst unaware, drove hospitable hosts to the depths of despair. What a trial to know Kafka might cough once too often. Shishes were voiced in the hope he would soften those coughs, but the victim of staccato urges amidst a long series of mucoidal purges, assaulting companions with deafening wheezes, threatening all within reach with diseases. No hope of silence at home or abroad. Prayer was no answer, for there was no God. As he rested in bed in pajamas or nude, over and over he hacked and he spewed. Microbial etiquette, always eschewed, exuded those germs in copious numbers, waking him up in the midst of his slumbers. At the end, people said, as he lay in his coffin, when Kafka coughed often. Now, two children's poems. And Jenny, when she was young, we were in a market and we were in the vegetable section, and she pointed and she said, "Pound clock." Brian Doyle says you can learn from children. It's so true. And I'm still working on a poem about that one. This one is called Misadventure. Elfin footsteps patter in the hall. Over all the house I hear a creaking cadence of ascent within that surreptitious journey of intent. All in the dark along the hall, the silence shatters and the pieces fall away to lie in noisy disarray. Along the hall, the wall resounds progression, ritualistic motion, buttery obsession. Along the hall, time lengthens, hunger grows, not quite in boundless leaps, but nonetheless acutely as the pangs invade her toes. The tiny footsteps end with the rattle of a lid, and a tongue and cookie blend in worship of an id, a mind to build a thought, a sense to prove, a crispy cookie voice to tell a tongue that this is love. And now, Año Nuevo, which is a beach south of San Francisco where the great northern elephant seals come to mate. Promises urge them shoreward, amid effusions of currents and gulls, they come searching. Immersed in a world of glass anticipation, small boys build sand castles, draw water from the earth, carve their moats with care, building to outwit the tide. Unaware, they weave a slender web of old men's memories, from tiny strands of fragile laughter, here beside this variegated pulse, this ocean nurturing as it purifies, polishing as it sets adrift. The sky darkens, sleep arrives with dreams of sand, of wind and water. Though they grow older, there is always the memory of sand fingers and opposable minds and touchstone treasures darkly left by riptide pirates who come ashore from far beyond the reach of reason. I remember such a boy, poised between his mother's voice and his canvas of unreachable stars, searching for touchstones within that spatter sweep of sunlight at the water's edge. And then a sort of a, well, this is a peace poem. Discard. Searching down dark alleys of desire, broken boots splash in stagnant puddles. Evenings are cold. Frost forms on a threadbare coat. Revelation, a stale crust, a swallow of murky sweetness. He stands inside the graveyard gate in soiled camouflage, holding fragmented thoughts, striving to edit sentences that spill over the wrinkled pages of his life, hoping to deaden the never-ending pain, that significant other culled from a time when twilight descends and flesh maggots to dust. Flags pass. He listens to the rhetoric about bravery under fire, of freedom to be all that you can be. And he wonders what's to become of him when he begins to fall apart and there is no one here to pick up the pieces. And then this is sort of an agreement to H.L. Mencken, who said that one would never go bankrupt by underestimating the intelligence of the American people. Electorate. We, the people, moving with the quick step power of pride, armed with the illusion of righteousness, fearing the threat of disaffection, sensing the master finger voice pointing the way to sure salvation, obeying all commands, tail wagging, grinning from bone to bone, rolling over at fingerstaff, barking at intruders, and housebroken, certainly. Pearl. Lying in shallow waters, hidden from view, who would suspect such circumspection? Who would presume to guess the end, whose means discreetly point in another direction? Fed by some silent rub, slowly it grows lustrous, blissfully unaware that anyone could care. And thus the oyster's gentle pain evolves a pearl, a nacreous delight displayed upon the consort of an earl, he whose deviant desire drives him to roister, seeking to gain the bed, not of the oyster. And of course I have to have a cat poem. Cat. The cat creates his catalogue of prey, both fish and fowl. Its catabolic machinations drive its midnight prowl. Through catacombs of hunger, it seeks to dull the pang with cataclysmic contact, utilizing claw and fang. Those furry little creatures with long and pointed features attempting to be quiet become part of the diet. The fragile winged innocents that hunt for worms and seeds will fall prey to the feline wants, will serve the feline needs. Soon catatonic inclinations lull it fast asleep. Its dreams of feasts accompanied by sounds of squeak and peep. And in that proper season when the race does what it must by voicing from each fence post its cacophony of lust, the hisses, pierce the darkness from each frenetic fare. In throes of desperate pleasure their yowls invade the air. A beast so royal and noble requires no master's touch, and thus it is impossible to compliment too much. The depths of its complexity must beggar all descriptions, and that is why the cat is loved by us and by Egyptians. I was once interested in experimental invertebrate embryology, and this sort of is what is left. Cooperation. A flatworm's brain is rather small. He scarcely has a brain at all. Cut off his tail at just the proper spot, he does not grow another tail, but grows a head instead. Yet now he's apt to go both ways, led by two noses, supposing it more fun to have a choice than simply following one voice. But no, this bipolar plight might leave him scattered, making him feel that nothing really mattered. Fiercely tugging at his interior must render him, I think, if not extinct, at least inferior. And now this is sort of in response to the Big Dip 9.0 that is expected in this, throughout this whole area. This is a poem about San Francisco. Itinerary. Here long ago the land rolled. Crowds fled in panic. Burnt into the matrix of the dark after images flared, smoke settled on the city. An abyss of stale air, a hint of contagion dampening the spirit. Today shutters open. Lenses search the waning light, strive to catch crisp memories in silvered patterns, as far below a canopy of sky, beneath a linear trace of waters, forces assemble in a collusion of silence. Today the wind stirs sails to overflow. Pelicans dive, their feathers scrape the white-capped bay. Soaring, they form a kite against the darkening air. As the winds rise, the boat rides bull waves upon jade water. To the west, the bridge becomes an orange harp. Its whispered resonance sings the sun's fire. Beyond Land's End, the headlands pulled from the sea rise sheer and shadowy. On ocean beach, foam rushes to cover black sand. Flocks of bubbles glisten, burst, and flow away. Only a hint of Farallon's far out. Monument to subduction, erosion, loss of identity. San Francisco, a city newly risen. A city of the Twinkied excuse, the vigilante compulsion, the oxymoronic milieu, summers of love, needled aspirations, hash-pipe fantasies. A city of lost children searching for paradise. Today the dawn lifts on a rubble of thin old men. Not many manage, some take advantage, barter their unkept dreams for small change. Life takes its taste here on the sidewalk, spits them out raw, alone, and decaying, where they lie until they have taken the night train and quietly left the Sprite City. In the arboretum, the jaws of Venus gape, while Mimosa shyly withdraws into itself. Within the Legion's palace, Rodin's bronze sits in contemplation. The dark aroma of a small North Beach cafe invades the senses, evokes the good life. Messages written on mission walls scream their blind protest. Somewhere sirens shriek, lights flicker, horns blare, and annoying redundancies, sidewalk chess wars progress. At the exploratorium, a frog leg twitches. Within the tactile dome, confusion reigns. North above Market, tall columns of concrete and glass rasp the sky raw with excess. Lithe men move hurriedly, nervously calm within that eye of self-deception, viewing their virtues through veils of success, finding them pleasing, appeasing their peers in the rapid turnover of small ideas. We are a city of legend, of the sabled life, where Nob Hill ladies sip their vermouth, plasma drips into withered spirits, armies of patrons gorge to overflow, pastors decry the godless patterns of youth. In the audium, dark echoes preside. Within Lefty O'Doul's, devotees are anchored to ringside seats. Outside, ragged men wrestle for stale scraps. Dismissive of catastrophe, protesters march joyously up fell and down, united to end a war, certain of new beginnings. Gathered in the park, loudspeakers demand obedience. Litter invades lawn. We are a microcosm, a city of empire, pulsing to anomalous beats at the edge of a continent, a land of eternal hypothetical premise. Forces gather in silent collusion, gather to mass the next intrusion. Busily immersed in busyness everywhere, we are hardly aware of danger, ignoring all that has gone before. The sandstone substrate slide, the glide toward oblivion, the ever-beckoning dark promise of this bright city inching forward in slow increments. And now, a lighthearted one. Persistence. Mr. Cease met Miss Desist. Her pulchritude could not resist. Her curves flowed freely through the air. She never failed to draw him near. And when he went both here and there, he sensed her presence everywhere. When roses bloomed and June moons flourished, decorating expectations that she nourished, he sensed her longing to be kissed, pursued the damsel near and far, for all is fair in lust and war. Insisting they were meant to be, ceaselessly insisted he. Her eyelash lures to find his life, he wooed and won her for his wife. Halcyon that early time, each day would find them eye to eye, each night their sighing seemed sublime, their messages confirmed their love, each utterance exuded dove. Yet now and then an angry thought seemed to emerge above the ought, and now and then an angry word above the silence could be heard. Eventually sharp strife prevailed. In argument on either side, bias was of course denied. The bickering intensified. Their bitterness increased until deep underground both did reside. And even then each did insist the other lied. Desist, he hissed. Cease, she replied. Now, here are two mall poems. I used to mall walk. I walked, I think, 11,000 miles in the mall. Insanity? Yes. Gift wrap. When those ennuied moments make you long to live, when the spirit moves you and you've got to give, when your day begins by staring at a pastel wall and you miss the glitzy atmosphere inside the mall, where the music's bland and the stores are packed with those ticky-tacky items that your life has lacked. Come mingle with the single-minded, desperate clones and share in the litany of squeals and moans. Watch those crafty merchants roll their merchant dice in the hope that you'll surrender to their smooth advice and acquire their worthless baubles at a painless price. Sleazy mantras move your mind with their clever jargon towards some proximate goal, to some ultimate bargain, and you salivate to stimuli you must obey with that greasy, easy promise you'll agree to pay for those glittering trinkets for that special honey, that significant other more than worth the money. With a mind bewildered, how your tired eyes itch in response to those items that can make you twitch. Soon you're dizzied by the dazzle of the gaudy kitsch, and you fall for the lively game of bait and switch. Then it's down the aisle in consumer style, viewing all the waste that is made in haste that will soon decay, that will never keep, that will add to the litter on the refuse heap. Plunging ever onward in that desperate drive that consumer research promises to keep alive, soon you'll greet the daunting new year only partly sane, with its burden of dubious resolutions, metaphoring all boringly inane conclusions over who needs what and where and why. Soon the maddening hyperbole becomes a lie that you can't acknowledge yet you can't deny, and those precious plastic assets that secure your talents now become a major problem for your monthly balance. As the day wanes wanly and your mood turns gruff, as you sense that all your purchases are seldom enough, your sturdy rhythmic stride seems to lose its lilt. Your enthusiasm crumbles, you begin to wilt. Then the rush is finally over, and it's time to relax, to renew the source of energy that stress extracts. As you exit from the mall and are homeward bound with an empty wallet and a mind unsound, give a prayer of thanks, wipe away that tear, for this madness is infectious only once a year. And now, another look at a mall. Old woman in a mall. She wears a soiled white coat. Her stockings sag. Her cane leans against a chair. A look of dull confusion reigns, and she seems poised upon the edge of darkness here. Nearby, a slim young girl appears, whose rich red hair clings to soft shoulders, and whose nascent scent anoints the stale, pale air with tokens of her gypsy muse, the free-form movements of her dance, appearing careless in her sly awareness. Young bucks gather, prancing, flexing, posing, supposing she has called them forth to share her crystal essence here among the burgers and the fries, the lattes and the lies, their throbbing hopes transformed to a crescendo by hard desire and artful innuendo. We choose to think the dance may never end. No one believes in dreams that lose the light, when hope becomes a thin excuse, when slender webs of reason clock and fires begin to dim in the eternal grief of flesh that melts, of worn old bones that take up space. The heavy curtain of her eyes has closed. Her tethered brain has tangled darkness with light. The gray words, only secrets now. Perhaps unwrinkled thoughts somehow emerge. An ephemeral thin fragrance stirs ancient spring, and crisp green phrases recollect a bartering of words, announcing kisses that once longed to ripen into love. Encased in her womb of silence, she dreams while voices float about her. Soon the mall will empty of fragrance, of desire. Perhaps then she will dance. Perhaps she dances now. Garden fresh. The rib from which all womankind evolved was meant to be a tall tale Adam told to Eve. Pretending she believed this fib, she smiled and offered him the fruit, hoping with this ripe confection she would rise in his affection, and responding, he would rise in her direction. This will be in the next book, but I can't resist it. City cats. The country's filled with country mice, mosquitoes, fleas, and gnats. The mice live safe, bucolic lives. They know no city cats. Country mice climb country clocks. They pause to hear the chiming. How curious, you'd hardly think that it was worth the climbing. Yet every day upon the hour of one, the climb commences. They bunch together in a band. They drop all their defenses. They scurry left, they segue right. Quite circular their reasoning. Their flesh is moist and succulent. It seldom needs much seasoning. The city cats, they pass the time in sharpening their skills. They slink along the midnight streets and suffer midnight chills. Their minds are always occupied with treachery and guile. They seldom hold illusions, and they never, ever smile. These streetwide, clever denizens are fond of country fare and wait for grain-gorged rodents to wander by their lair. The silly mice have no device for thwarting fang and tooth. Their fantasies of cheese and chime comprise their world of truth. City cats, they like their mice both tartared and au gratin, or toasted lightly over coals, but seldom ever rotten. When country mice began to plan for visits to the city, their dreams of frolics on the town never included Kitty. Those country mice were thought to be both clever and ambitious, but sadly they have paid the price for being so nutritious. All right, and then 3 more. Continuity. Earlier, walking among the stones, she scratched lichen from their worn surfaces, uncovered the names and dates, documented the early and late dead, took pleasure in their resurrection, hoped her fingers would rescue their souls from anonymity. As I lie beside her, my mind strives to remember how it was, each moment, each beginning bound to the next moment, each part of something else that endures. No sound to break the silence, only that remembered touch, whose remnants lie now like a soft burden, like a phantom limb that comes and goes breathlessly. And finally, solitaire. September arrives, deadlines approach. Hours disappear. I strive to crystallize their meaning as a child might seek a lost love among strangers. It grows dark. Nights seem to spin themselves into the fabric of a dream. Days shuffle by, or rush headlong out of control, a calendar of numbers. Faces pass without meaning. Crisp scenes escape. Remnants remain. Clothed in a worn beige coat, she reaches out. I hold her briefly. Her silver hair glistens in the waning afternoon. We sit, sifting softly through our words, seeking a greater voice, hands across our table touching as if it means more than I dare to mean. There is a fragile path in her quiet smile, waiting to be explored. I hear the melody of her voice, sense the soft textures that lie hidden beneath her surfaces, revel in the eternal essence of her that clings and saturates my vision. Together at a reading, our symmetry binds us. Words disappear. Her presence so intense that all else becomes white noise. I trace her outline in the quiet dark, the luxury of a final glance, the soft sound of departing footsteps. Nothing deafens like the anguish of goodbye. And then finally, this is the title poem for the next book. Scenario. When footlights dim at last, dust clouds herald the horseman's fast approach. Cameras catch villain faces, glaring eyes that form grim lines of fond intent. We are assured their sight will doom our maiden's saintly hopes. Her virtue will survive the coming night of sins. All this and more augmented by a proper score of soaring violins. It is a time when dawn to dusk the same plot thickens, quickening our pulse. Tall in the saddle heroes pass, their righteous anger holding sway, never once failing to save the day. And when the end appears, the theater clears itself of dreams. We sit in solemn silence, savoring our bliss, knowing that the real life just outside can never be as wonderful as this.
Tell them collage is here for sale. Tell them that your book collage is here on for sale.
Oh, yes, no, the book, yes, the book is for sale. I don't know. My hearing is so bad, I have a problem, you know. If anyone wants to ask me questions and you can tell me what they say, then I might be able to answer them.
Okay. Don't be shy. Back there in the yellow.
Hey, Jim, can you hear me?
Yeah, so far.
Hey, how long did it take you to put this book together?
Well, the electorate was written back in 1972 as part of a Berkeley underground poetry anthology. So, you know, that's hard to answer that, you know, they just,
That's 30, 45.
yeah,
Or now,
some of them just come, you know, most of them actually come really fast, but then the thing is, the real fun, which at first I abhorred, but now I like it, is the revision. And I sit down and I say, no, that word won't work, no, this won't, you know, strike this. And then, of course, you know, Mary gives sage advice, and the members of the Village Books Poetry Group, sage advice, and, you know, so I just keep fiddling around with them, and, you know, and I don't know whether they're ever done, but it's just a great experience.
Well,
And
the
like
thing-
I say, my short-term memory, I have to carry around a notebook. So I carry around a notebook wherever I go, and if I happen to see something, you know, that startles me, I try to write it down. And I even steer with one hand. I don't look at what I'm doing, but, you know, I write these lines down.
He is a good driver. He really is
What?
a good
What?
driver.
That's not texting, so you're okay.
Yeah, no, it's not texting. I'm too illiterate to text. I don't understand any of this new fangled stuff.
The thing is, Jim, I'm trying to figure out if I have to wait that long for the next second book.
No, Andy is working on it, and you know, hopefully it'll be out. Well, my youngest son's wife is an editor, so she agreed to do it. So as soon as Andy gets it done, which no pressure, I'll ship it down, and then she'll start to work on it. And then, of course, I've been doing this NaPoWriMo stuff, so now I've accumulated more things. And then I've got, you know, when I first moved up here, I probably wrote, I don't know, 500,000 memoir words. So I've got tons of that stuff to do, lighthearted stuff, somber stuff, you know, nutsy stuff. So, you know, there's all that. I mean, I was so lucky to work at the Multiversity of Uniformia, because these people, you know, would just give me all kinds of wonderful little anecdotes. Like this one professor I work with, and I like to explain that when he became 50, that his testicles descended. And so he decided that he really ought to have a relationship. So he took dancing lessons at Arthur Murray's, and he courted a dance instructor. And so at noontime, he would take a broom, which was not unlike his wife-to-be, and he would waltz up and down the corridors with this broom. So, you know, I mean, there's just, you know, I've got billions of these anecdotes, you know, that are keep me alive.
I've got a question.
Yes.
Jim, we take the New Yorker, and I always go to the poets and see if they're good enough to be in the New Yorker. Usually they're not. When are you going to have one of yours in the New Yorker? Every one you read was good enough to be in the New Yorker.
Well, Mary suggested one thing that I might send off, but, you know, I'm a little bit apprehensive, and so, you know, I don't do it. I mean, mostly it's just writing daily. Every morning it's the same thing. Every morning I read maybe 6 or 8 books at once. I mean, I shift from one to the other. My short-term memory doesn't allow me to remember a damn thing, but it gives me prompts. And so, you know, I get my notebook and I'm ready to go. And so I'm having a cup of coffee and I look out the window. And I feed apples to the deer. And I feed sunflower seeds to the squirrels. So I look out the window and there's this deer and he's staring right in. Okay, wait a minute, wait till I have one more cup of coffee. And then, you know, I cut up the apples, put them out, and put some sunflower seeds, come back, and then, you know, their annex are so encouraging that, you know, it's just wonderful. The other day, I didn't see these 2 squirrels from the side, but it seemed like they were facing each other with their paws like this, sharing a bowl, a finger bowl, so to speak, of sunflower seeds. And with the deer, the rutting season and they're locking horns, and a couple of days later they're sharing the apples side by side. You know, it's just wonderful stuff. It's just wonderful. And so, you know, it just keeps me so enthusiastic, you know.
Any other questions?
I have a question. Jim, when you were in San Francisco, you got your degree and then you taught, right?
No, never taught. No,
Okay.
I only did research.
Okay, so what were you?
I was
Crazy.
working in, what was I? Yes, well, I was a perennial student.
Okay.
When I was going to Fresno State, and I got a bachelor's degree in biology, and I met someone who was taking courses and working full-time, and I realized that was possible. So I worked 40 hours a week, and I carried 5 classes. Then
But what did you do when you were working the 40 hours a week? What were you?
I was a spot welder's helper.
Spot welder.
Bap, 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 bap. And I had 2 minutes between the time that I had finished putting the thing in the frame and the spot welder had finished welding it. I had 2 minutes, so I had a textbook, and I would open it up and I would read. And the bosses came by and they said, "We don't pay you, you know, to read." And I said, "Stand here and watch, and if anything is messed up, fine, I'll quit. If not, I'd like to continue." So they watched me, and the production went on, and so every 2 minutes I would, you know, read. Then after I graduated, I went to work for at the Livermore, California Linear Accelerator, and I was a radiation monitor, and that was so boring. I mean, I was making $405 a month, which was damn good money then, but it was so boring, you know. Also, while I was in high school, I worked at Roma Winery on the weekends. So, you know, it's rot gut wine, but, you know, what the hell. So then after I decided that life was just too short and I wanted to do graduate school. So then I applied to UC Berkeley and got accepted, and then moved to Berkeley, and then I was employed by Stauffer Chemical Company, and again I worked swing shift and graveyard, 40 hours a week, carried 4 courses a semester. And then finally, I kind of relaxed and got hired by the university, and then, you know, continued on. I was an insectary man for a long time. I reared 13 different species of insects for research. And so I finally got hired as a technician. They call us staff research technicians. And so actually it was hands-on research. And then that went along for a long time, and I had been employed for 25 years at the university. And one of the professors was using a contaminated virus suspension to control cotton insects. So I blew the whistle to EPA and Cal OSHA, and as a response, the department chairman handed me my letter of dismissal. But I had union backing, and he realized I was very intent. And so they made a change, and I went to forest entomology, dropped my research, and then just went on, and after that, some of the projects were great, some of them weren't so great, but I met so many wonderful graduate students, it was just so, what I took away from the university was far more than 35 publications, and, it was the interaction with the people, this was just great. So, that's what's been happening. Then my wife couldn't stand living in the Bay Area, so we came up here, and then I dropped into Betty Scott's class, and that sort of started it, and then I joined the Senior Center, and Anna Ryan was doing an anthology, and then I did the Academy of Lifelong Learning and took a bunch of classes there. And I took 2 5-year breaks during the middle of my graduate work because I just got so damn sick and tired of, all of this business. I mean, I take an invertebrate zoology class, and there would be specimens in the jar. This whole semester we only had 2 field trips. There were specimens in the jar. There were a lot of fancy words about the specimens. So you couldn't spend time looking at specimens. What you had to do was write down the notes because that was what you were going to be quizzed on. So, it was sort of a nonsense. So I was, I'd take breaks and I'd take classes in geology, and I'd take American history, and I'd take literary history, and then I'd come back, and finally they told me, you've only got a year to finish this thing up. Whoops, okay. So, well, my major professor was over in France, and he sent back a nematode. And so I just dropped everything. And on one occasion, for 3 consecutive weekends, I stayed in the lab, and I had a clock, and every 2 hours the clock would ring, and I'd wake up and take a sample of hemolymph from the insect, and then go back to sleep, and then 2 hours later, and so, it went on and on. So I finally wound up finishing the project and writing the thesis in 9 months, which was pretty good, but I mean, I busted my butt. So, but like I say, the fun part was all of the people I met, just wonderful stuff.
There's nothing wrong with your long-term memory, is there?
And it's not steam beer, but it'll do. Well, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Are you gonna be in the back selling the book?
Pardon?
Are you gonna be in the back signing your book?
Yeah, I can be in the back signing my book.
Better, I brought one.
Why don't you announce that? As if you, in the microphone.
Yes, do it right over here, the microphone.
I'm going to be in the back signing my book.
Glad to see you here.
And I never. Oh, you got the right kid. I don't think I'll be able to manage it. But I really appreciate
Signature cover. That's right.